welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today is the second instalment of my How to Use Up a Whole Paper Pad series. Now if you saw the first one, we talked about how to use up the difficult papers that are intended for scrapbooking that often come in these kind of pads. Today we're going to be talking about how to use up your favourite papers, which I think is sometimes just as difficult because you don't want to ruin them when you cut into them. A lot of people save their favourites and then actually they never get used. So today I'm going to be creating 5 cards using my favourite papers, which are actually these two that are shown on the front. They're really kind of highly foiled, and so we'll be having 5 different layouts that really show those papers off and make the most of them so that you can cut into them guilt-free and have some nice cards to show for it. So some of you will have seen this pad already from the first video. It's the Recollections Bloomsbury paper pad, and there's 24 designs and there's 2 sheets of each, so there's 48 sheets. So essentially I'm going to show you different ways to use the 24 sheets because you can always double those up to use the whole pad. So this is one of the designs that we used last time in our difficult to use video, which I'll link. And then we've got this one, stripes, some borders. This is one of the ones we're going to be using today, which I really love because I just love the diamond foiling on it, and I do love navy blue, so I really like that one. And then this one's that other one that I'm going to be using. So it's got this kind of like, I think it's quite an Art Deco-y pattern in my mind. It's very heavily foiled. It's really beautiful, so I want to make the most of that on my cards. We've got all these toppers on here as well, so I'll be doing another one on how to create cards out of these toppers. This is another one that I used last time in the hard to use papers video, because I think unless you're a scrapbooker, that one's quite difficult to use. And then we've got this one, which is the same as the one we're going to use today, but it's just not foiled, so it's got the pinks in it instead. The first card that we're going to create today has quite a simple layout. I've just cut pieces of this paper to fit onto a 5x5 inch card. Now when you're creating layouts like this, the most important thing to count is this gap in the middle as well, and that sometimes means that you're going to have to measure in 1/16 of an inch, because where I would normally cut a piece of paper to 1/4 of an inch smaller than my card blank, I've then got to also think, well, I've got 1/8 of an inch in the middle here, so I also need to cut an extra 1/16 of an inch off of here. So you're taking off a 1/16 of an inch each side to get the nice even layers. So that is 2 5/16 inches, and that's also 2 5/16 inches. And that one's 2 5/16 inches that way as well. And this one's 4 3/4 inches this way. And this one's the same size as this. So you can see I've put in a big panel of this, which is one of my favourite papers, a smaller panel of this, and then I've just used a nice coordinating paper from the pack as well to create the other corner. So I'm just going to glue those on. So the cardstock that I've used for my card blank is this navy blue classic card from Tonic Studios, and it's a bit lighter. It's 216 GSMs, which is a bit lighter than I would usually use as a card blank, but it does stand up nicely. And because I'm reinforcing the front with these layers, and I'm going to put a panel in the back for my greeting, then once those bits are done, then it'll be thick enough to make a card blank that I would be happy to send, as opposed to one that feels a bit insubstantial. So the other thing that I'm going to be using throughout this video is this Be Bold Blooms die set. It's a really nice set from Spellbinders of really delicate flowers and foliage that you can build up. Obviously you can use whatever flowers or whatever you want to use to decorate your cards, but I'm going to use those to decorate mine. So then I've just die cut some circles. This one is from some blue basil cardstock. They do a whole series of this cardstock with the embossed dots on it. I just think that extra bit of texture. It's actually why I use this card base as well. You might be able to see it's got a bit of texture on it. And I'm kind of liking all the textures with the patterns. Just helps it not to look flat. And then I've got this thank you sentiment, which if you watched my last video with this pack, is actually one of the leftover sentiments from that. So I use this thank you and happy birthday stylish script hot foil plates from Spellbinders. And for me, this is a really good set of hot foil plates because happy birthday and thank you are the ones that I use most. And I've used gold foil to hot foil that onto some of the bits that were left over of the paper that we used last time. If you don't have a hot foil machine, you can of course heat emboss your sentiments instead. And if you're interested in the hot foiling, then I'll link below to the unboxing video that I made using this, which shows you step by step how to do it. So I'm going to add this on using some foam pads. I'm just going to pop that into my circle. And then I've got some of these leaves that I cut using the Be Bold Bloom set into gold foil cardstock. And I'm just going to stick those around. And then I'm just going to add some more foam pads to the back of this before I add it onto my card. So this is actually quite a nice layout for when you're getting to the end of your special papers and you just want to use those last pieces up. Whereas the next card, we're going to fill the card with one of our beautiful papers. So then there's our first card finished, and you can see it's got loads of lovely glimmer on it. That's a nice simple card, but it really shows off those lovely papers. So then for my second card, I'm going to use a full-on piece of background for that. So I'm using an A6 card blank, which measures 8 1/4 by 5 7/8 inches, scored and folded in half. You can see that I've just gone through my cardstock and found one that's as close as possible to the colour of this foiled piece. Then I've cut this to match the front of the card, and then I'm just going to glue that on. So I did a bit of fussy cutting on my previous video, and obviously when you're fussy cutting you get kind of the bits of paper that are between the pieces you're fussy cutting out. So these two lighter pink flowers, I've die cut from those pieces because I'm trying to waste as little of this paper as possible. This darker pink I've cut from cardstock, and then the accessory pieces I've cut from gold foil sheet. So I've got 3 of these squares that I've cut from the other paper that I really love, the one with the diamonds, and they are 1 1/4 inches each, and the gold that I'm going to back them onto 1 1/2 inches each. So I've got 3 of those squares. So I'm going to glue these gold pieces into the centre of the flowers. So I'm going to add these along here with some fine pads. And I'm actually, where I've got the diamonds facing upwards this way, I'm going to do them sideways on the middle one just to give them a bit more interest. And then I've got this happy birthday, which I've hot foiled using this. This is from the mini everyday sentiments from Spellbinders. And again, I've used the gold. I've actually hot foiled it onto the back of that tonic paper that I used for the last card base, because it's actually quite flat on the back. So I'm just going to pop that up along there. So I'm just going to chop up some dimensionals to go on the back of there. And then I should have said as well, I actually cut it out with the coordinating die, which comes in the set. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue behind these and add them on. I'm actually offsetting them so that you don't lose all of this lovely paper, because obviously we do want to show off the papers today. And just lift up the sides of the petals as well, just to give it a little bit of dimension. So that's our next card. It really shows off that paper. So then for this next card, I've got 3 panels of the papers. So they all measure 5 7/8 inches this way. Then this one measures 1 3/4 inches across. This one measures 1.5 inches across. And this one measures 1 inch across. So then I've got these 2 strips of gold foil sheet as well. And I'm just going to add a little bit to the inside edge of these 2 side panels. And I just want a little bit of gold peeking out the sides. So I've just got the edge on there and I want the same on the other side. So then I'm going to add foam tape down each of the side panels. If you are worried about postage and you're going to send it, then just glue it on instead. But I'm going to use foam tape for mine because I wanted that extra bit of dimension. So I'm going to glue this panel on. I'm going to use these as a guide as to where to glue it. So you can see in this die set, there's quite a few bits and pieces that can be put together. So for example, for these I've cut this die which gives you 5 of these top pieces and this die which gives you 5 of the bottom pieces. These bottom pieces I've cut from cardstock and the top pieces I've cut from little bits of the spare pattern paper that were left over when I fussy cut last time. So you can see I've stuck most of them together, but I just wanted to show you how those go together. And then I've got this piece here, which comes from this die, which I've cut from gold foil sheet. And I'm just adding a little bit of glue just to the back of each of those kind of cups. And then I'm just going to glue these in. Then there's that piece made. Then we've got these ones. So this big piece is this and that's cut out of cardstock. This piece is this and that's cut out of pattern paper. And then there is this piece that can layer up as well, but I'm not using it for this one. I'm just going to use this gold piece for the bottom. That's the nice thing about this set as well. You can just kind of mix and match pieces. You don't have to use all the bits. And that way you can get a bigger range of things as well. And because these are colours that are already in the pad as well, I know they're kind of like from a colour palette that works well together. So I'm just got this piece, which is this here, that I've cut out of gold cardstock, and I'm just putting a bit of glue on the back of each of these. And again, this is personal preference, like you could stick these on the front, you could stick them on the back. These kind of petally bits I've made out of pattern paper. They are made out of this, so you can see you've got 3 smaller ones and 2 larger ones. I like to put the larger ones on the bottom. I mean, you could make these in more kind of like leaf type shades and make them into leaves. I like them like this because I thought they looked a bit like flowers or buds, but there's just so much that you can do with these. And then I've got this. These are actually both from here. You can see that's this bit and that's this bit, but I've cut it from gold and from the darker pink cardstock. So I'm just going to lay those 2 bits up. And then I'm just going to arrange those onto my panel. And I want to create something that kind of goes up this centerpiece. And I'm happy with that like that, so I'm going to stick that down. So I'm going to try just to pull the pieces out one by one so that I keep that kind of view of where I want things to go. I'm going to pop this piece up on a foam pad. And then I'm just going to add some glue to the ends of this so that it can kind of glue across that kind of bridge that we've created. So then we've got this really lovely dimensional card. I think that just looks really classy. So for this next card, I'm covering the whole card front with this lovely paper again. I'm doing another I6 card blank. So then I've got this panel here which is 2 inches by 4 1/4, so that it fits across there. And again I've got 2 strips of gold that I'm going to tuck under there. And for me, I tend to end up with a lot of strips, and this is a nice way of using up some of those gold strips without having to use a whole panel underneath. Because I think the foiled cards tend to be some of the most expensive cards, and this way I can get away with not using very much, but it still adds just as much to the card. So now I'm going to glue that onto my card front. I actually didn't set out with the intention of combining these two on each of the cards, but I think they go together so well that I've ended up combining them on all of the cards. So then I've got a gold foil circle, and I've also got a piece of this blue cardstock that I used previously, the tonic one. I'm going to arrange my florals. I've just made up these florals in the same way as I did the old one, so wherever you see the dark pink, it is the cardstock. Anyway you see the light pink, that's bits that I've die cut from the leftover pattern paper, and then the gold is obviously the gold foil sheet. But actually this is a nice way to use up little bits and pieces, because actually the dies themselves aren't very big. You can use up quite small scraps with these. And then I've got a sentiment that is the same hot foil plate and the same gold foil as I did on the last one, but this is foiled onto a bit of the spare blue pattern paper from the pack. And again you can see, like, even just these teeny tiny small bits you can use up with sentiments or die cutting. You don't really need to waste anything. Then I've added a bit of foam pad onto either end of there, so the stalks of the leaves kind of go in between, so it's not making it wobbly. And actually I'm just going to pop this up on dimensionals before I add that on. And I can add that onto there, and then I can add this up. I'm purposefully lining that up with this gold line as well, so that it kind of continues on the line. So there's that card done. And then for my final card, I'm going to use another full panel. Now I've got these rectangles. These are 1.5 by 2.5 inches, and these are 1 3/4 by 2 3/4 inches made of the gold. So I've got 3 of each, and I'm going to just layer those up. Then I'm going to use dimensionals to add those to my card. So then I've made up all these flowers. I've mixed some of the blue stalks in on this one, as well as the gold. So then I'm going to pop some foam pads behind here. So then there's that final one finished. So then if I bring the other ones in, so I think you can see we've got some really lovely cards that really show off those pattern papers. The pattern papers are a real feature of the cards. Now out of one sheet of each of those papers, I've still got quite a few bits left. So of this shelly kind of one, I've got a couple of quite big size pieces, a couple of smaller size pieces, and this diamond one, I've got a few pieces as well. So I've got some more to play with on my other cards. I really hope that this has given you a nice selection of layouts that you can use to use up your favourite pattern papers and make sure that you really show them off. Let me know below which is your favourite one. I really hope that you enjoyed today's cards. If you did, I'd appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a link there to my blog where you can find a picture supply list if that makes it easier to find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.